introduce David Brauer. He's the commissioner of the Prospect League. David
Hello,
actually came to
everyone.
us. David actually came to us a year ago, if you can believe that. The whole year's gone by. And we were kind of tossing this idea around and discussing it, and here we are. So, David, why don't you go ahead and share your vision with everyone?
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for allowing me some time here to speak to everyone. Great to be with you. Appreciate all that Saber does. And fun fact on personal side, I got a book coming out in a month. So it's about Ron Frazier, who really kind of started what we know as modern day college baseball down at the University of Miami, and kind of put the blueprint together. And the SEC followed from there. And here we are today in 2024 as, arguably the second most grossing NCAA championship, because football obviously is not an NCAA championship at the FCS level, or FBS level, I should say. But yes, as far as the Prospect League goes, I came to this group last year. I took over as commissioner about a year ago, or a little over a year ago, about a year and a half. And my background is public relations, marketing at the college level and various schools and a league office. And one of the things that we always tried to tie in was history. And this league has a ton of history. For those of you that don't know, the Prospect League originated as the Central Illinois Collegiate League, and that was one of the first NCAA college summer leagues, and started in 1963. And there's some old stories about how the CICL All Stars beat the Cape Cod League All Stars back in the day, and then the MLB stopped giving funding to the CICL. So, didn't make somebody happy there. But a lot of great history in this league. Last year we celebrated 60 seasons of baseball when you go back and start that CICL era. In 2009, it became the Prospect League, kind of an amalgamation of some of the CICL teams, and then also the old Frontier League independent baseball teams. So took the college summer league model, expanded up to 18 teams now across 7 states. One of the better summer leagues. I think we can really get higher up on the chain once we get a little more exposure, get a little more content. Things we're definitely working towards. Some this year, but a lot of big things on the horizon in 2025. But where Saber, I feel like, fits in is helping tell that story of our history. This year, we're going to make more inroads with our Hall of Fame. In the past, we've had, I would say, more recognition rather than a set Hall of Fame. Now, we're not going to have a physical Hall of Fame or anything like that at this point, but obviously it's going to be virtual. But we want to recognize some of those names. So far, we've got Ben Zobrist and Sean Manaea and Brian Dorsett. But this year, we're going to bring in our 2 professional baseball Hall of Famers, and Mike Schmidt and Kirby Puckett, and our college baseball Hall of Famer, and Danny Goodwin, who, fun fact, is the only player to be drafted #1 overall twice. But those players played in the CICL. And so it's important, I think, to bring those names in and give our Hall of Fame more credibility, more recognition. And then we start with classes going forward after we build this initial group. So again, weaving in that storyline. Some of our stadiums have tremendous histories. Danville Stadium was filming site of the movie The Babe. Jackie Robinson played on that field. Satchel Paige, the Brooklyn Dodgers, had a farm team that played there. One of our new teams, DuBois County in Indiana, down by Evansville, they play in the ballpark where the movie A League of Their Own was filmed. So there's a lot of lineage there. They do. My understanding is they do a kind of a throwback game too, each year with female players in their old uniforms, kind of like the movie. We've got a stadium out in Johnstown, Pennsylvania that Babe Ruth played in and homered there. So there's just unique storylines between our players. There's a lot of diamonds in the rough, we've had over 200 major leaguers in our history, but at the same time, some of those may not be big names, but some of them may have interesting stories. Some of them have gone on to be managers. Bob Brenly, for example, played in this league. So there's a lot of different stories that could be told. What we'd love to do is take that content and get it on our website, get it on our social channels, somehow weave that narrative into our history, because it is, like I said, very rich, very deep. And I think that's where Saber could come in. And I think there might be some really unique and interesting projects for anyone that might be wanting to take that on. We'll certainly give credit on our site, help cross promote SABR, especially the Central Illinois chapter. When it comes to the type of content we would look at, is maybe it's a written form, maybe it's kind of a feature story, maybe it's something that can be told in a video format that we can put on social media, any of those aspects. So really it's kind of a blank canvas. But that's why I came, to Bill and to Ryan last year and talked about, the potential for, how we could partner between the Prospect League and SABR here in the Central Illinois chapter. So again, it's college summer league, it's college baseball, but it's wrapped in minor league packaging. We've got some of the best stadiums in the country when it comes to summer collegiate baseball. So again, we're really trying to make a lot of strides and upward trajectory moving forward. We just for the first time, we put our Prospect League, a comprehensive Prospect League record book on our website. We're trying to pull in some of the old CICL files and get those uploaded on our website for resources, and maybe eventually get to some form of a record book there. But that's kind of the long-winded answer to where we want to go with this, and kind of gauge the interest and who might want to take some of these things on and dive into our history. Yeah, thanks, Chad. There's our website.
Did I see initial questions? We have questions? No. Oh.
I would appreciate it if you repeat the two players you're talking about for this year, the major league players.
Oh, going into our Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
Mike Schmidt and Kirby Puckett.
And that's not the only two that have made in the majors though, right?
Oh, no. We've had about 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Last year,
you.
we hit it was kind of fun to talk about. Last year, we had a World Series champion for the Texas Rangers, Josh Smith, one of their bench players, but he was on a World Series champion. We had an MLB All-Star and David Bednar. We had two players that played on LSU's College World Series championship team, one of which was on the All CWS team. We had the National JUCO Player of the Year. I'm probably forgetting one. We had two consensus All-Americans. Two of our players are projected top 10 picks this year. JJ Weatherholt at West Virginia and Brody Brecht at Iowa. So, there's some good recent history. There's some really good past history, and it might be kind of fun to go on a deep dive and see what kind of storylines come out of it.
Well, thank you for clarifying. I just misunderstood what you said, so thank you.
Oh, no worries.
Tom Best speaking. First of all, I want to tell you, I go to a lot of Burlington Bees games, the season ticket holder this year, but we also go to a lot of Clinton games too. And while we were first really saddened that they lost their affiliation in the Midwest League, I tell lots of people that I think the Prospect League and the baseball that we see in Burlington and Clinton is some of the best baseball you can see. I think they've done a tremendous job promoting the league, and attendance, I think, is up over what it was in the Midwest League at the end. I often tell people this: they're college kids, and unlike what we saw in the Midwest League, if a guy gets a hit or strikes out or so many things, the Midwest League's like, yeah, okay, I'm here to learn. These kids are there to play and have fun, and yeah, they want to do better, but it's a different atmosphere. It's a different atmosphere, and if you love college baseball, you'll love the Prospect League. Now, the question I wanted to bring up was this: what else can be done, do you think, to promote this on a more nationwide basis? I think it's still kind of a hidden gem for the most part. People are tuned into regular minor league baseball, but they don't always think of this league as one of the first places to go and to watch good quality baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Tom, and appreciate the comments on Burlington and Clinton, and thanks for being a season ticket holder. I've got to get up to those locations this year. I didn't make it to either one last year. I made it to Burlington for the preseason banquets. So that was great. Saw the attendance there, and I could see how the place fills up. So, but you're right. I mean, these kids are trying to better themselves. Obviously, in the world of NCAA portal and transfers, you might be upgrading your school. You might be a D2 player and you're going to D1, or you might be a low D1 and you're going to a high D1, JUCO, etc. But yeah, in terms of exposure, I think it really boils down to the visibility aspect. We can have the greatest product out there, but if people aren't seeing it, then that's, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I think perception is based on what you see. And I went through this in my college background and in Division I when I worked at the conference office for the Summit League. And we were constantly compared to the Horizon League. And the Horizon League got all the exposure. Butler made the national championship game for basketball 2 years in a row. Then they leave. But the perception was still there. The Horizon League was so much better because then they piggybacked those runs with more television coverage and greater exposure. Our seeds were better. We had other sports that were far outperforming the Horizon League, but we didn't have that exposure yet. We didn't have that what can you hang your hat on? So that's where we're trying to go with this. I alluded to 2025, trying to get more eyes on our product. That's one of the big aspects we're working on right now, is trying to find, a more robust way to view our games, because any game you see is the best 2.5 hour commercial you're going to have for it. So that's one area. And I think tying in that history, giving it that, that credibility of, here's guys that have come through this league, whether it's the players I mentioned before that are as big a name as you can get in the sport, or some of these guys that are just, hey, here's a guy that really had a great college career. Here's a guy that had a great, maybe just made the majors and just cracked his way into the lineup. Warren Morris is one of our alums, from LSU, that had the most famous home run in College World Series history, the walk-off in '96. We've got players that have gone on to the business side of it. We've got the founders of Marucci Sports. We've got some personnel, high up personnel, front office staff with the Yankees, with the Padres. So it's trying to weave those stories together, and then people say, okay, now I've heard of these guys. Because at the end of the day, as you probably know, when you go to those games, you may not know who's on the field today, but you're going to know, hey, that guy was on our team last year. Now he's in the College World Series, or he's playing for an SEC team, or we saw him play. Or 3-4 years ago, hey, that guy's in the majors now. It's kind of like minor league baseball in that regard.
I'd have a suggestion with what you're talking about, the history. I think it'd be wonderful the Prospect League would put together a traveling exhibit, poster board type things. You've seen them in a lot of history museums and things, with all that information, and schedule it and send it around the league. Yeah. So, somebody to have it for a week and really promote the heck out of it, because the names that you're presenting here and things, most people don't have a clue that that's where it all started. So that, I think that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, it is a great idea. And we're bringing back our All-Star game next year. We haven't had one for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. And so I think that's another exposure opportunity, and kind of tell that story as well. So yeah, definitely making a note on that.
David, if you describe how the league operates, how do kids get either recruited, or do they come to you? Do coaches call you and say, I've got a couple of guys that I'd like to have play in the league? Do individual teams recruit players, or is it the league as a whole? And if it's the league as a whole, how does the league decide to which teams to assign individual kids and so forth? Give us a description about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot more of the former than the latter in what you asked there. For the most part, teams will go out and try to basically recruit players. In a way, it's very similar to what you see in college baseball from the individual programs. Hey, we've got a couple guys we want to bring in, or it's a connection of, we know these coaches really well. We've had players from that school for years, and it's just kind of a tradition that they'll send us a few. A lot of our players we catch early on, kind of on the upswing. We'll take some highly touted incoming freshmen. Now, that's not real common, but we'll take a few of those. We'll take a lot of kids that are freshmen, sophomores, And, maybe the next year they're in the Cape, maybe the next year they're in the Northwoods. And I hate to say the Northwoods because everybody thinks they're so much better than our league, but really at the end of the day, we're close. It's kind of like my Summit League and Horizon League analogy. I mean, they do a great job of promoting, and that's where we got to catch that up with that. But yeah, in terms of the player procurement, a lot of the teams will go out and recruit, find players. Again, it's coaches' relationships. One of our general managers in our league was 20-some year coach at Southeast Missouri State down at Cape there. And so he knows everybody. He's getting players from all over. So, last year they had a catcher from Alabama. They had the starting catcher from Alabama. They had a shortstop from Southern Miss that went to a super regional, but he was the heir apparent to their, I don't know if he was a senior or a drafted player, but he was going to be their starter this year. So it's that development side that's why they're sending the players to us. So at the end of the day, each team will go out and recruit the players, sign them. The contracts are all processed through the league office itself. And then, but as far as the management of players, that's completely up to the team. There's no, the league will sign, a number of players and then disperse them amongst teams. It's really up to the individual clubs.
Is the league then in competition with the Cape Cod League or the Northwoods League? And as a consequence of that, do the members of the Prospect League try to contact kids as early as possible? I mean, as early as possible in the school year? Is there any rules about when you cannot contact them, like for colleges recruiting high school kids to come play? Does the Prospect League have any internal rules about don't contact them during the season, or always go through their college head coach and so forth?
Yeah, there's no holds barred on the timing. I had this past fall when we're trying to get our contract page set up for execution. It was September, and we had a couple teams just eagerly waiting and saying, "Hey, we got a couple guys that are coming. We need to get them signed." I mean, I'm thinking, we just ended our season 6 weeks ago. These kids are just getting into school, But in terms of, so really, there's no contact time on that. We'll even get players during the summer. There's probably, last year we had about 800 players come through this league because of the transiency of a college summer league. You're going to have guys come in. Coach says, "Hey, you're a pitcher. I only want you to get 20 innings, and then I want you coming home resting. Maybe you get 100 at bats, come back to campus, spend your time working out here, that type of thing." And then we'll get some kids later in the year that, hey, they're just eager to play. Maybe they're coming off an injury and they've got the clean bill of health and they want to get back on the field. Or maybe a smaller school player that's trying to, enhance their position. But in terms of competition, as far as league wise, we're in the same category as the Cape Cod League and the Northwoods League. Now the Cape Cod League, totally different. You're getting the best of the best, based on reputation, and rightfully so. I mean, not taking a thing away from them. But what's interesting, and one of our coaches, one of our volunteer assistant coaches that's been in Danville the last 2 years is Ron Polk, who was Mississippi State's longtime coach, one of the biggest figures in the sport of college baseball. And he's coached in the Cape Cod League. And he said, their road trips are 30 to 45 minutes away. They all play on basically high school fields, but it's funded by Major League Baseball. They help pick the players. So that's why it's such a desirable location. Now for our league, as I alluded to earlier, we've got probably some of the best stadiums in the country when it comes to college summer league, because we've got some old minor league ballparks. We've got some independent parks. We've really got some top-notch facilities. And, you can get 5,000 people a night if you do it right. And you play in front of the big crowds and the real kind of minor league atmosphere. But, in terms of the Northwoods League, they've really done a fantastic job with their marketing, with their pushing out of these players came through here. They've got some really strong franchises that have been there for a long time. Not to say that we don't, but I think they really push that a lot better than we do. And that's what we're trying to get, that exposure, get that message out that, hey, we're right on par really at the end of the day with them.
Have there been schedules prepared yet, or is it still too early to accomplish?
No, we get our schedules out in the fall, or try to.
Oh my.
We'll start working on it in the fall. This year we announced it right after the first of the year, so first week of January. Gives teams more opportunity to sell and have their theme nights and get their group sales done. So it's really that, the front offices are run like minor league baseball. The players obviously being college players, but it gives them that taste where, if you're a small school player and you don't play in front of the big crowds in college, you're going to get that opportunity at some of our locations. If you're any player that, they all aspire to make the major leagues or at least play in professional ranks somewhere. If you don't get there, you kind of had that experience here because we have the road trips, the bus trips. Some of them are pretty long when you get out east. If you've looked at our map at all, we've got, it gets a little sparse when you get out east. So they've got that pretty heavy schedule where it's every day. We play 56 games in 65 days. So it's a grind and there's a lot of travel and, so it really is that true minor league experience for a college player.
So I can't find my hand to raise, but the scope of this review is just the Prospect League, not its predecessor. Is that correct?
The CICL?
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking at the reason I'm asking that, David, is because I'm looking at your history, your record book, and it's just the Prospect League. That's why I wondered.
Yeah, no, we're trying to pull in as much CICL history as possible because it is part of our past. Why our record book looks like that is because we had access to all the records for the Prospect League. CICL, as you all probably know, when you're looking backwards on records and statistics, you hit a certain year and it gets a little sketchy.
Sure.
We've got, I think we went back, and I'd have to double check our website again, but I think we went back to about the early 80s, at least the early 90s statistically. And then we've got a little more data, maybe going back to the early 80s as far as records and so forth. The challenge will be working backwards from there to the early 60s. So that's definitely more of a longer road, which again could be some type of research project for this group. Maybe it's cultivating some of the old statistics in newspapers. I'll be honest, I haven't seen any stat pages from anything from the 60s or 70s, and if I have, it's probably 1 or 2 years.
The Bloomington Pantograph gave great coverage when the league started because Jack Hornberger was a big voice in it, from Illinois Wesleyan coach. So there is information there. I just wondered.
Yeah.
So that might be something to expand on later.
And I don't know if any of you in the Bloomington Normal area know Mike Woods. He's a former commissioner of this league, and he's been tremendously helpful in giving us access to those old CICL files. Tom LaMonica at ISU was, a commissioner back in the day as well. And he provided me with everything that he had. So, we have some pieces. It's, as I said, it's that start of the CICL era from 63 to about the early, 80s, where it's kind of the really barren when it comes to trying to find the data and the stats.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd love to find that picture of Mike Schmidt somewhere playing in this league for Springfield. That would be the holy grail, I think.
So, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sean. Please.
Oh, okay. Thanks. So yeah, I was just kind of checking out the website. So do you must clearly have like a template in place for, I think I saw as far back as 1994, it looked pretty thorough. Was there a process, like, were you involved in the process of uploading all that to the website, or how?
Yeah, so Mike Woods that I mentioned, he had all the files because he ran a CICL history page that he still kept intact. So he had all those stat group files. So all those teams use the stat group program like a lot of colleges use. And so if the HTML was there, it made for a real easy upload because then you'd have the whole league, or at least and most of the data, if not all of it. So we were able to take those HTML files and upload them. I've got a technology director that handles all those sides of things, but I knew enough to be dangerous that we could make that work. And so he packaged those together. Now, unfortunately, the stat crew program wasn't around prior to that, or at least in use in the CICL. So that's where it's trying to find that information, aside from a random end of the year report or two that we might have access to. And there were, to maybe answer a little bit of your question too, there were some record books that I've seen, like from 1982, but it was typically done as just the record holder as opposed to a top 5 or a top 10 list. And so, our goal is at least at some point to have the CICL era record holder in all these categories, to build something that has all the standings, that has all the champions, at least start there and then maybe dive a little deeper.
David, have individual teams announced rosters or partial rosters? Because it sounds like from what you're saying that probably individual teams have signed a bunch of kids already.
Yeah, a lot of our teams will roll out a signing just to generate a little publicity, especially if it's from a big name school. I know Springfield just had a couple of University of Illinois players that they mentioned that they had signed recently. But yeah, we'll roll out and populate our rosters soon. We usually do that around the first part of May. It's a little bit of a cumbersome process in our current setup, but hopefully something that gets a little easier in the future. But yeah, so I mean, most of the teams have, if not probably 2/3 to 3/4 of their roster, if not more, for the whole season, or at least the start of the season, I should say.
Do the kids get any financial assistance at all? I, have in mind, living expenses of some kind, transportation expenses. Of course, in the era of NIL now in colleges, I even wondered if, any of them get paid at all, or if that would violate league rules, or, even in comparison with the Northwest or Northwoods League or Cape Cod League or whatever. I didn't know if those kids, got compensated or got financial assistance at all.
Don's signing up to be a host family. That's what he's asking.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
No, I'm saying you are, Don. I was teasing you.
Oh, I see.
I said you're signing up to be a host family.
They're always looking for those, but yes, the host families play a critical role, much like the lower levels of minor league baseball. But that's really the backbone is in terms of housing. We have a couple of teams that are near campuses that they can rely on some of the dorms in the summer and have some access to some living headquarters that they can stay. But in terms of compensation, there's no compensation for players. They actually pay a fee to play in this league, which is common in the summer. But because that covers your travel costs and your uniforms and those types of things. One of the first things that I did in this role is to partner with an NIL company to give us guardrails to, knowing what's going on in the present atmosphere in college athletics and what's happening going forward. NIL is not going anywhere. It's going to be part of everything you do in college athletics going forward, and for good or for bad. Now, you hear all the stories about, the recruiting of players and how much money they're going to get to transfer schools, but that's usually football. It's usually basketball. You might have an isolated case probably in the SEC for baseball. But, what my vision was for it is, these kids are up here, maybe from a Southern school, maybe they're, maybe they are from the Midwest, maybe they're playing in their hometown and they come back for the summer. But, if they have an opportunity to go out and do some social media for, a local restaurant or a car dealer or a bank or something, make an appearance and sign some autographs. I mean, the fans and especially the kids, they don't know who the guys are. They just know they play for that team. I mean, that's exciting for them. And so if there's a way that they can recoup some of that money, or maybe make a little money in the summer, we're all for that. And, that's an area that summer leagues haven't really dove into. It's going to come, and the question is going to be who's going to be out in front of it. So that's why we're trying to get there. Some of our teams have embraced that and gotten involved with some programs to start baseball cards, and then those players get some payment for their likeness on those cards. A few teams are more hesitant to dive into it. But at the end of the day, our biggest challenge with the whole NIL aspect is the transiency, because, you could have your roster on opening day is going to be totally different 3 weeks later, or could be.
I've got a couple of points. first of all, I just saw on Facebook the other day, which I follow the Burlington Bees. Well, they've got, I think, pretty much their whole team, and they had the names and the schools they were at and everything, which is really exciting to watch. I'm always amazed. I think we had some kids in Burlington last year from Hawaii or some West Coast, and I remember meeting a couple of them and talking to them like before game stuff. They go, "What's a kid from like California doing here?" And they tell their story. And the baseball card thing is a great idea. The other thing I wanted to mention is just something that, again, getting fans into the ballpark. We were in St. Louis just a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that the Cardinals do is high school teams that sell enough tickets, they can come and play after the Cardinals play. And I know you can't do it on night games, but on like maybe a Saturday afternoon, or especially when they play on Sundays, bring those high school kids in. They bring their families and friends and everything in. They see the product that's going on in the Prospect League. They're going to come back and probably see a game again. And I think it's a real thrill for those kids to say, I'm playing on a field. Maybe someday this can be me. We're getting to play on a real professional field and seeing what we can do. And I know from watching some of those high school games, I mean, those kids love it. They love it. Yeah. And of course, some of them, I remember a game a few years ago, and there was a kid. Now again, they're using metal bats, mind you. I saw a kid hit a home run in St. Louis, and you think they'd won the World Series when he did that. But it's great. Anything that can be done to bring fans into the stands, and for a very affordable price. That's the other thing I always mention. If you're tired of going to major league games and you go and you say, "Oh my God, we just spent $200 going to a game," and well, you can buy a couple of season tickets for that. So I said, food prices are great, all the merch is great and stuff, and very affordable. So need to keep promoting and keep people coming in.
Well, and you mentioned, the kids side of it. A lot of our teams do a camp, so the kids will get tickets. They're not coming by themselves, so they're going to bring the parents. The parents will spend the money. The kids will say, "Hey, I want to go back." But you've got that opportunity. Accessibility is such a big part of this league, because kid can go up and get an autograph from probably the whole team if he wanted on a given night, whether they do an autograph row or whether they just are signing before a game. And so that can hook a fan in. But yeah, you're right. As far as the ticket prices, one of our teams is in O'Fallon, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis, and the question is, if it's a great night and you want to go out and see a game, do you want to drive 10 minutes and go see the O'Fallon Hoots, or do you want to fight the traffic, go downtown, spend all the money and go see the Cardinals? I mean, obviously there's time and place for those, but if you want to kind of do it on a whim, it's a little easier to go to one of our games. Or a lot of our places too, it's the community team, as in Burlington. I mean, that's your team. You're not close to a major league city. Minor leagues are even somewhat distant, and so you take a lot of pride in that. And that's these players that come in are kind of your own for the summer.
I was going to add one more thing. I take it you've probably been to Clinton, right?
I have not yet.
Oh,
no.
You haven't to Clinton? Okay,
No.
all right. Well, here's my recommendation. I think they'll do it again this year. They've been doing this for years. They have something called a garbage pail, and they serve this at the concession areas. And what it is things left over from the last game that they didn't get rid of. They heat up, and you'll get like a giant plate. You can get, oh my God, corn dogs and French fries and onion rings. It's just whatever they have for that night, and it's really good price. I've been taking my sons to ball games up to Clinton for years, and it's always like, "Are we gonna get the garbage pail tonight?" You go, "Well, absolutely. That's what we're here for." It's always fun. And those are the kind of promotions you can get in the minor leagues. It's a good deal.
Is that one sponsored by Tums?
Oh no, I don't think so. No. Clinton is a great old ballpark, and they've done a lot of improvements to it. There's a big history. You go in there and you they can film movies and things there and stuff. But yeah, we get up to a lot of Clinton games as well, especially when Burlington's in there. We're gonna miss opening day in Clinton when Burlington's up there, because we're coming back from a trip. But I told my wife that we have to be back on the 29th, because that's like a national holiday for me. You got to be in Burlington for opening day. Of course, it's nicer now because it's unlike those days where it was early April and you'd absolutely freeze to death. You're not going to freeze to death on Memorial Day weekend, so it makes it a lot better.
They only
exactly.
know Tom as Billy Goat and Clinton.
But David, do you have a list of the 200 players?
We do on our website. We've got, if you go into the history tab, we've got our MLB alumni. And so, a lot of names people will recognize, especially baseball fans. There's only a handful that you won't. But yeah, I mean, is it a who's who of baseball? No, but there's definitely a lot of names on there. There's we talk about storylines. I mean, Tim Stoddard, the only player to win a World Series and an NCAA basketball championship as a player, is in there. So there's some kind of some interesting names there too. And as I mentioned earlier, Danny Goodwin, that is in the College Baseball Hall of Fame, is the only player to be picked #1 overall twice.
Who was that?
Danny Goodwin is his
Oh,
name. He
okay.
played at Southern
Gotcha.
University. Yeah,
Okay.
he did make the majors. I think he played. It was a handful of seasons. It wasn't a real long career, if I remember correctly, but he was in the 70s.
Thank you.
He's really a local kid. He played at Peoria High School as a high schooler before he went to Southern. And that's where he was drafted #1 the first time was, he was in high school in Peoria.
Okay, yeah, I'd forgotten that. Now you mentioned that. Yeah, I do remember seeing that in his bio, and that's one of the unique things we talked about. The players that come from Hawaii or California. The local kids that are playing in their backyard. I mean, that's kind of the fun part of the summer baseball, right? I mean, you've got one of our teams, the coach has a real good connection with the head coach at the University of Hawaii. He had 4 or 5 Hawaiians last year. It was in LaSalle, Peru, the Illinois Valley Pistol Shrimp, which is one of our great nicknames too. But you got to look up what a pistol shrimp is. I probably spend 10 minutes trying to explain that. But yeah, they had like 4 or 5 Hawaiian players, and WGN did a story about them. And but they're like, I'm in the middle of to be, I'm not going to disparage LaSalle, Peru, but let's be honest, it's the middle of nowhere of Illinois, right? I mean, nobody says, hey, I'm going to LaSalle, Peru. And so here's these kids, they're either from Hawaii or maybe from California, and they playing alongside a kid that maybe is here locally. And it's you've got those kids that are JUCO players, that are D3 players, and they're going up against a kid from the SEC. It's really that unique combination that you don't get to see.
To what extent do major league or professional scouts come around to watch individual games? I mean, 18 teams mean there's typically 9 games going on, and LaSalle, Peru is not real easy to get to either, much less Burlington, I suppose. So I don't know, do you typically have at least 1 or 2 scouts at each game, or do you not really because of the remote?
I think in the past was probably more. I've had a couple conversations with scouts, and that whole industry has obviously changed a lot. You're so reliant on video and what you can see, and maybe that's how you narrow down your list, and then you'll go out and see them. So it depends on the player. The aforementioned Pistol Shrimp, they had Noah Schultz a couple years ago pitch for them. That was a 1st-round pick, is in one of the top prospects in the White Sox organization now. And he was coming out of high school, and he didn't have a lot of innings, and he wanted to get some, start or 2, 3 in before the draft. And so he came, and the scouts were obviously there to see him. But, to answer your question, on a general night, you're probably not going to see maybe 1 or 2 games, more than 1 or 2 per game. But, it's definitely more few and far between, because, I mean, at this point, there's over 30 college summer leagues. I mean, it's an industry that's really exploded in terms of, people running teams. And part of that's probably a ripple effect from minor league baseball, and also some more profitability, in my opinion, because you don't have to pay the players, of course, as you would in independent. So, yeah, so to answer your question with scouts, we'd love to have more, but I think it's just the nature of it. I think they all hang out in the Cape Cod League for the summer.
Do you have scouts or coaches from four-year colleges, if they might expect to see junior college play, some of the better junior college players kind of congregated on a field at the same, if you got, say, 5 or 6 junior college players, I could think that might be attractive for college assistant coaches to come look at kids that are going to be transferring to a 4-year school within a year or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And even within the portal, I had an assistant coach from a Big Ten school tell me, man, if you guys ran a portal all-star game, you'd have every coach in the country watching it. They'd probably make them mad too, because they don't want to incentivize that. But yeah, you're going to have, there'll be coaches attending, and they might be there to watch one of their own guys, and then they see somebody that's a JUCO or maybe a kid that's looking to transfer, and you say, yeah, let's go get him. Or it's funny, the recruiting side of it that happens more in college summer league baseball is the peer recruiting. So I'm a player that plays in the SEC. Okay, you've got you send your pitcher that's Division I pitcher, but maybe at a smaller school. It's like, hey, you're pretty good. We need a third starter this next year. Why don't you come join us? So there's a lot of that, and it's actually become a bit of a problem where, especially on the pitching side of it, coaches don't want to send their pitchers to summer leagues as much anymore because of that fear. He might be my number 3 starter, but maybe another school can either offer him an opportunity to be their number 1, or maybe he just wants to go to a bigger school. The portal changes everything, and baseball obviously had a lot of transfers to begin with the 11.7 scholarships, but the portals just amplified that even more so. One of our top players last year transferred mid-season, so we're touting that he went to this school, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, now he's going to this one, so which one do we list? Because he had the one that was on his contract from where he played, and he had transferred out. So that's really, I think that's where more of the recruiting lies than even the coaches themselves. Now, not to say that they don't come out and check some players out and keep tabs on them, but they certainly do that as well.
I have a question. I remember there was a game last year we were talking about this. Are there any rules limiting how many innings the pitchers in particular can throw? And then I remember a conversation we had once was, are some of the big name pitchers who may have thrown a lot of innings, let's say they went all the way to the College World Series and things like that, are they saying, well, I'll come, but I'm going to get, my innings are going to be limited because I do not want to risk arm fatigue. I don't want to risk getting hurt. And, especially if you said they're a number 1, number 2, on a college team, it may be a little reluctant. So 1, are there limitations? And 2, is there any thoughts about somebody's just not wanting to pitch as much?
Yeah, the limitations, there's no limitations in terms of how many innings you can throw in our league, at least from the league perspective. Now, the coach may say, hey, you're going to get your 25 innings, or you're going to go get 50 and you're done, come home. It might be June, it might be July. So it's really up to the individual program, because that's really our clients. If you look at it that way, that's who we serve, is the college coaches, obviously the players. In terms of limitations within the season, we do have a pitch count limit for each game. So it's 90. If you get to, I believe it's 95. I got so many numbers in my head this week with so many other things getting ready for the season. But if it's 95, then you've got X number of days rest, the standard that you would see. And if you violate that, then you're subject to suspension and fine as a coach. So, it is very stringent. Another thing that we've done to help protect arms was a partnership we signed with armcare.com last year, right before the season. And so each team has some of the arm care training equipment. And if you're not familiar with arm care, you should check out their website, because it's really cutting edge stuff, very scientific in what they do. And it really is measuring the player's fatigue, the pitcher's fatigue. So in theory, it kind of breaks that X number of pitches, X number of days off. I've got a freshman in high school that uses it. And so he'll go out and, you throw 67 pitches, you cruise through the game. It might feel like 40. And, conversely, you go through a game and you pitch 45 and you're got constantly have traffic on the bases. It's high stress. It might feel like 70. So you do the arm care reading each day, and the big time programs do this. A lot of the major league teams use arm care, and it'll give you this reading. Okay, what's your fatigue? Do you have the green light? you might come back a day earlier than you thought, or conversely, you might take an extra day than you originally thought. So it's all those factors that we're trying to promote the health of pitchers. We just did a podcast. We were guests, myself and one of our coaches were guests on ArmCare's podcast, talking about college summer leagues and how we're trying to position ourselves to be very pitcher friendly, which should incentivize coaches to send their arms to us and know that they're going to be taken care of.
David, if you would, tell us more about your background. You said it's in marketing in general. Did you play baseball, first of all? And did you major in marketing at college? Where'd you go to school? How long you been in baseball? Is this your first year in baseball exclusively, as opposed to, working for a college with presumably all sports and so forth?
Sure. So I grew up in the Champaign-Urbana area. I live in Mahomet now, but grew up in the Champaign-Urbana area. Shadows of the University of Illinois, going to all those games as a kid, basketball, football, baseball. Really took an interest in, athletics at a young age. Realized pretty quick in high school that wasn't going to go anywhere on the field. Baseball was always kind of the number one love there. But I like to say in Little League, my fun fact about my Little League career was that Brian Cardinal, the basketball player at Purdue and played in the NBA, we were the tallest battery in Little League history. And I say that with just, making that up because
Is that right?
He's 6'7", I'm 6'7". So, but he was my catcher. But anyway, so I always like to tell that joke. But, I realized, I wanted to go into the business side of sports in some regard. Always had an attraction to the stats and writing and different things like that. So went to Parkland College in Champaign and then transferred to the U of I and worked in the athletic department, the sports information office for my 3 years there at the U of I, and worked a lot with football. Had a couple internships in the NFL. Worked in college athletics for a couple universities. Purdue was baseball SID for there for a year. NIU for a couple years as baseball SID and football, and then moved over to the Summit League and spent about a decade there when they were in suburban Chicago. And then they moved out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where the basketball tournament was, and about 80% of the staff did not go along. And so kind of stepped out of sports for a little while, worked in a couple of other industries and the PR side of things. Majored in sports management. I forgot to mention that. You wanted to know what major I had. And so this opportunity came along, and with my interest in college baseball, I just always found it, really interesting. Obviously, just being at kind of getting into it at Illinois when Augie Garrido coached here for 3 years, which not too many people know that. And started attending the College World Series. You see stuff in my background there. So I've been to about 20 College World Series, still go annually for a couple days. And it's one of the great events if you haven't been out there. And so that's what kind of led me to this position, kind of a challenge of being commissioner for a league like this. My position at the Summit League was assistant commissioner for communications and kind of the external side of everything. So yeah, baseball wise, a couple of years as a baseball SID, kind of being involved mostly in all sports, a lot of football in my background in terms of my PR work, basketball at the Summit League. So kind of the gamut, but a lot of those things transfer over to baseball too. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of business side to it. Obviously having a lot of background in college athletics, there's a lot of key points there that I've brought in that people haven't thought of in this league because they're kind of tunnel vision on minor league baseball. Mm-hmm. And they don't know that what the trends are in college athletics, like NIL, as I said earlier, that's not going anywhere, and then taking care of, student athletes. And, for example, the Northwoods League, they'll play 72 games in 76 days, and we're playing 56 and 65. And that's the goal that the coaches want. We don't want to burn our guys out in the summer, because what people don't realize is day one of a college summer league season is really game 58, game 62, whatever it is for that player.
Yeah.
That's not opening day. And, so you're tacking on another 60 by the end of the summer, they're at 120 or so. And, so you want to make sure the student athlete welfare is a focus as well. and then give them a great experience, and they should take that back to their schools. And hopefully at the end of the day, the coach says, well, what'd you learn in the prospect league? You learned to hit better, you learned to throw a different pitch, you learned maybe some other sides of things. So we're trying to work on some of that off the field aspect as well. But so yeah, I mean that's some of the knowledge that I was able to bring into this league from the college side, some of the hot button issues and where things are trending. Because at the end of the day, we're an arm of college baseball, and much like a minor league team is an extension of the major league parent club. That's kind of what we are in a way to these college programs.
Sure. Thank you. That's interesting background. Where is Brian Cardinal now?
He is living over by Indy. I think up by Fort Wayne. He's even doing some farming these days. So
I was wondering what his current occupation is.
Yeah. He does some work for Purdue. He goes out and makes the appearances and takes photos with everybody, and tries to get people to donate. So
if you did say he's into farming.
That's what I had heard. Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I talked to him, but yeah,
I don't think
he said he was doing
his
some.
father isn't a farmer.
No, he was a trainer for Illinois basketball for a long time.
Sure. Okay.
So, David, as far as the history, do you have any ideas how you want to begin, or first steps that you want to take, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think the starting point is getting some content that's some of those storylines, as I spoke about, whether it's stadiums, whether it's kind of that did you know factor, right? I mean, a lot of people will say, oh, that stadium's really old in this league. Well, they don't know what came through that ballpark, who was on that field. I think that's really fascinating at some of our venues. The side of things of, okay, what players came out of our league and where are they now? You might have been the most average college player and maybe got a cup of coffee in professional baseball, maybe the majors, and now you're doing something really important, either as a coach, as a manager in the majors, in a capacity that's, as I mentioned earlier, the guys that started Marucci, they played at LSU in Mississippi, and they played in this league. So I think there's a lot of interesting storylines here, but that's kind of what I'm envisioning, at least initially, is maybe. I love the 40 plus games they're attending. That's good, Tom. We're gonna get you a punch card. But anyway, I think I think starting with that content would be great for our website. If it's like a weekly feature, our season is so condensed that it's just constantly on the go. But maybe there's something we can get out there during the summer that's of interest in the content format. Maybe it's something that's more programmable for the off season, when there's that lull that brings people back and says, okay, now, I know a little bit more about the league and who played in it. So that's what I'm envisioning, whether it's a written feature, whether it's a research about, statistics or trends. I think that would be interesting. Short form content, if somebody finds photos, any archive things. I think archives is kind of the ancillary piece, right? If you're going to go through and research some of these things, if you find, hey, I came across the season stats from 1972, do you have these? Let's get these. We would certainly be able to provide as much as we could to someone interested in doing research, but I think it's ultimately going to kind of depend on the individual, what their biggest interest is. And we can certainly kind of tailor our mission to that as well. So, I think it's telling that historical piece, whether it's through the venues, whether it's through the players, the league itself. The mention of beating the Cape Cod League back in the day, kind of taking a step back in time, some of those did you knows or on this date, or just a deeper feature about somebody that was really interesting. I mean, we had some college coaches that came through here. Wesleyan's coach, was in this league. Dewey Calmer, that was at Bradley forever, coached in this league. There's a few other names I'm forgetting, but I think that's probably the starting point. I could see it developing into, can we research records and do a record book that covers the CICL as best we can? Are there some pieces that maybe it's a statistical analysis of whether it's modern day summer collegiate baseball versus the other leagues or the past? Really, it's a blank canvas. And I think, I know there's a lot of interest in different aspects of research in SABR. And, I look at the journal and you see all these interesting stories, and I'm envisioning, hey, can we get something like that about this league? Whether it's the Prospect League era, what's the CICL era, whether it's the whole 60 years of the two. I think we could definitely pull something like that and really promote it and help promote SABR.
Sorry, David, just one follow up on that. Is the game with the Cape Cod League All-Stars, is that validated or is that a rumor?
There's a news release somewhere, and I invited one of our team directors, Jeannie Cook at Danville.
Yeah, I know Jeannie.
Yeah, she's told me she has just the vast library, and she has that somewhere.
Okay.
And I might even have it if I'd have to look through some of the papers that I got on scans, but we've got some things on our website. I've got some things in our files that I can share. And I've got even more that could be scanned and somehow captured electronically. And then she's got this vast library. So if anybody wanted to spend a day, go over to Danville, go
Her
do
back
some
room
digging.
there or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
At the stadium. Yeah.
Exactly. You could do some digging in there, get the tour of the stadium, and stick around for the game. And I haven't heard 100% sure whether Ron Polk's going to be back or not, but there's a living legend right there too in college baseball. So
yeah, I just didn't know if you were just saying that's rumored or not. So thank you for clarifying.
No, that's
Okay.
and I don't know the specific year. I want to say it was in the 60s, but I've heard the story from Jeannie, and she would know more detail on it. But yeah, I can't remember exactly whether it was like like the Cape Cod All-Stars against the CICL All-Stars, or whether it was the champion of each league or something along those lines. I'd love to see us get back to a tournament where we had champions of some of these leagues. It'd be pretty fun, but I don't think we'll ever get there because as I mentioned earlier, those college coaches want their guys back, and they want them back on a specific time in August. So can't budge on the back end of the season.
Preseason All-Star game matchup.
Yeah, there we go.
Or middle of the season, I mean.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Sure.
And by the way, I just pulled up the Prospect League site. I think I looked at it in the past, but I'm not sure how much I watched it. It really looks nice, and a lot of good information there. Just getting that word out. Maybe talking about spreading news, maybe we could get you to come to Minneapolis in August when the SABR convention's up there. And there are probably a lot of things already drawn up, but maybe getting someone like yourself or other representatives in the league come and do a presentation for a program like that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, something to look at. But yeah, thanks for the compliment on the website. Yeah, we've tried to enhance that a bit. Probably gonna have a new look for that next year. Again, trying to build more content to it. And I really want people to go to our website and not just click on it for 2 minutes. I want them to browse around there, learn a little bit, and see the history, see the present day, and kind of see that vision for the future.
And some nice merch too. I just pulled up the shop site here. I'll tell you what was really cool. The Midwest League used to do this. They would have a shirt that'd be like all the teams, like the Cardinals, and then they'd have all the minor league teams affiliated. It'd be cool to have something like that for the Prospect League, where you'd have one shirt that would have all of the logos on it. I would buy that. I know some other friends would buy that in a heartbeat. And saved. Oh, did you have one?
No, we did it last year. We haven't launched that this year. So yeah, that's definitely we'll definitely get that back up there then, because we've got a partner that's runs that store for us. And what's interesting, and it kind of boils down to the store is a good example, but our 18 teams are really run as true individual clubs. Mm-hmm. So it's, in my position, there's a lot of herding cats, as you can imagine. But like the Northwoods League, everything comes from the top. And basically they say, you have to do this. It's not voted on. It's, you are doing this if you're gonna stay in this league. Mm-hmm. And so, it makes a little bit different dynamic. So some of these things we're trying to get moving forward that would make a lot of sense. We just got to get everybody on board to do it. And then you get in the whole revenue share and this and that. So,
Yeah, and by the way, we did meet at Corn Belters game for our Sabre Central Illinois group, and that was a lot of fun. I think we're going back there in July again. Is that
Yep,
correct,
I was-
everybody?
Yeah,
I
July
was going to try
13th,
to
we'll be
make it.
back.
When
Yeah.
is that?
It's July 13th. We're going.
Okay. I was going to try to make it last year, and my son had a game, and so while he's playing, I'm not missing those. So
Oh yeah, family first, but July 13th, if you're available, get a doubleheader. So
all right, I'll have to keep that in mind. I'll see what the schedule looks like.
Yeah, I've got that day. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, July 13th, doubleheader in Bloomington. Sounds great.
Yeah, and then I do want to mention too, I mean, any of you feel free to reach out. My email address is on the website there. It's just commissioner@prospectleague.com. Love to hear from you. If you want to catch a game or something, I can do anything to help you out there. Be happy to do it. But certainly if you're at a game and I'm attending as well, I'd love to meet you in person and talk to you.
no, that sounds good. And then I'm seeing in the chat that there's already some content. Some articles have been written, and so we'll be able to, we have to pull that together.
That'd be
So
great.
so essentially, Ryan, this is Ryan calling you out. Hey, you need to send us an article. We should share it with them right away. It'd be great to do. So I'm sure there's more of those. So if you've already, for anyone who's already done something that might cross over, please send it in. You can send it to, well, I don't want to volunteer, but I'm going to volunteer. So you can send it to me. Chad and Jeff are also in the leadership group. So, send it to one of us. We're happy to send it on over to David and collect them together. If you have an idea or you want to volunteer, certainly reach out to us as well. We're happy to work with David and with you. And we actually, surprisingly, we all chat rather frequently. Chad and Jeff and Bill and myself, we all talk. So certainly, if you guys want to figure out even a game plan, or if you have ideas, reach out. We should put this together because we can do a lot of good together with the Prospect League.
Yeah, and I think, from our side of things, we're a lean organization. I mean, it's myself. I've got 2 part-time employees. There's so many things we'd love to do, and it's just that time. And if we can, get some assistance from a group like Sabre and help promote your chapter and just the organization as a whole, and even individually give you credit for, what you put together, we'd be happy to do that. Absolutely.
Less position players than Major League Baseball, right, David?
What's that?
You have less position players than Major League Baseball.
It's very true.
Pretty lean bench.
Exactly. But yeah, I think there's some fun stories that can be unearthed. I know last year when Ben Zobrist came and we gave him his Hall of Fame ring there in Normal, we had him on our podcast that we had last year. And he said that the Prospect League was where he learned to switch hit. He had never done it before. And he came, and I think that worked out okay for him.
All right. Any more questions? Anyone have any questions before we should let David go? We can all call it a night. Anyone else? All right. Well, David, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Looking forward to this.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thanks
me.
so
It was
much.
great talking with everybody. Appreciate the insight and the questions, and it was fun. I was glad to do it, and happy to do it any time in the future. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Ryan,
Great.
as always, thank you for putting all this together. Thank you for your work.
Well,
Great program.
Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Thank you,
Wonderful,
everyone.
wonderful program. This is what makes Sabre special.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, thank you.
Good night now.
Good night.
Good night.